What if aging was optional? Not the years, you cannot stop those, but the weakness, the mental fog, the slow disappearance of the man you used to be. What if that was never inevitable? What if it was just the result of following advice designed for someone who had already given up? Because the men who ignore that advice, the men who pick up heavy weights after 60 and refuse to apologize for it, they do not just get stronger. Something happens inside their brain that science is only now beginning to fully explain, and it is extraordinary. In the next few minutes, you're going to discover 4 things most men over 60 will never know. First, why your brain literally shrinks when you stop building physical strength, and what training does to reverse that process from the very first week. Second, the silent identity crisis that strikes almost every man past 60, what it does to his hormones and his sense of self, and the one physical habit that dismantles it completely. Third, why the standard advice you have been given about taking it easy after 60 is not just wrong, it is the single biggest predictor of early cognitive and physical decline. And fourth, the complete psychological transformation that happens when a man commits to building his best body after 60. Not just better sleep or more energy, a fundamental rewiring of how he sees himself, how others respond to him, and what he believes is still possible. Then, at the very end, I will share one unexpected insight, something almost no one in fitness or psychology is talking about, that reframes everything you think you know about aging, identity, and masculine potential. Watch until the end. Everything builds toward that final insight. Picture this. A man wakes up at 63. He is retired or close to it. He has more time than ever, and yet somehow he feels slower. Not just physically, mentally. Words take a moment longer. He walks into a room and forgets why. He reads a page and has to go back. He tells himself it is just normal aging. He figures everyone goes through this, but here is what is actually happening beneath the surface. Your muscles naturally lose mass and strength as you age, typically around 3 to 8% per decade after 30, accelerating after 60. This process, called sarcopenia, happens because your body produces fewer muscle-building hormones, and that your muscle fibers gradually shift in composition. But this is not just a physical problem. It is a neurological one. The hormones driving muscle loss are the same hormones protecting cognitive function. Testosterone levels got to decline 1 to 2% annually after 30, with steeper drops after 60, directly impacting memory and executive function. Testosterone protects brain cells by reducing oxidative stress, boosting synaptic plasticity, and improving neurotransmitter regulation. And it goes deeper than that. When you stop demanding physical output from your body, your brain reduces production of something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of BDNF as fertilizer for your neurons. It encourages the growth and connection of brain cells, particularly in the hippocampus, the region most critical for memory and learning. When BDNF drops, the brain becomes more vulnerable to depression, cognitive fog, and long-term decline. But here is where it gets interesting. Moderate to high-intensity training enhances BDNF expression and neuroplasticity within weeks. Neural adaptations begin in just 2 to 4 weeks. Functional improvements follow at 4 to 8 weeks. Measurable muscle growth arrives at 8 to 12 weeks. 2 to 4 weeks. That is less time than most people spend waiting to feel motivated enough to start. And what is happening in those early weeks is that your brain and muscles are learning to communicate more efficiently. Like a new employee who gets dramatically better in the first few weeks, simply by learning the system before any physical change occurs. An exercise that felt impossible at week 1 can feel manageable and even comfortable by week 3. Your brain is the first thing that transforms, and it transforms fast. Now, think about the man who does not know this. The man sitting in a comfortable chair, letting sarcopenia hollow out his muscles while BDNF slowly drains from his brain. He's not resting. He is declining. He just has no one telling him the truth. If that has been you, and there is no judgment here because this culture has failed you, the next section is going to feel very personal. There's a moment that happens to almost every man somewhere between 58 and 65. It does not announce itself. There's no dramatic breakdown. It is quieter than that, more insidious. It is the moment when a man stops describing himself by what he does. The career identity fades. The children are grown and gone. The physical presence that once defined him, his strength, his energy, the way he moved through the world, starts to feel like a memory. He looks at old photographs and feels something he cannot quite name. Not sadness exactly. A quiet grief for a version of himself he is not sure he will ever see again. Psychologists call this a crisis of self-efficacy. In plain language, he has stopped believing he is capable. And here is the brutal truth about that belief. It does not stay contained to one area. It bleeds into his relationships where he becomes more passive, into his decisions where risk feels threatening rather than exciting, into his health choices where he starts making peace with decline rather than fighting it, and into the quiet hours of the night when the voice asking, "Is this all there is?" gets a little louder. What most men never realize is that the answer to that voice is not philosophical. It is physical. Strength training stimulates the release of endorphins, adrenaline, dopamine, and serotonin, neurotransmitters with immediate mood-lifting effects. But the deeper transformation runs beyond chemistry. By challenging yourself to follow a schedule, show up consistently, and hit your targets, strength training builds resilience and self-efficacy that reaches beyond the gym into every corner of your life. This is what the fitness industry completely misses when it talks to men over 60. They focus on the body. They show before and after photos. They talk about waist size and blood pressure, and all of that matters. But it is surface level. The real transformation is this. When a man at 62 lifts a weight he could not lift 3 months ago, something changes in his psychology that cannot be manufactured any other way. He has proof, tangible, undeniable proof, that he is still capable of growth, that his story is not finished, that there are still chapters to write. Research confirms that older adults who participate in resistance training report enhanced well-being across physical, mental, and social dimensions, with self-efficacy identified as one of the key mechanisms driving that change. The man who rebuilds his body after 60 is not just building muscle. He's rebuilding his belief in himself. And that belief, once it takes root, changes everything else. The next section is where this gets uncomfortable, because we need to talk about the advice that has been working directly against you. You have probably heard it from someone when you trust. A doctor, a spouse, a well-meaning friend. Take it easy. You're not 25 anymore. Don't overdo it. Listen to your body. This advice is delivered with genuine care, and in specific contexts, post-surgery, injury recovery, it has merit. But, as a general philosophy of aging for a healthy man over 60, the science says it is one of the most destructive things you can be told. Physically inactive people can lose up to 5% of muscle mass per decade after 30. After 60, that rate accelerates. The man who takes it easy for 5 years does not rest. He declines. The muscle does not wait for him to return. It atrophies, and with it goes his metabolic health, his bone density, his hormonal balance, and his cognitive resilience. But here's what makes this myth specifically dangerous for the male brain. Men can see a meaningful difference in their testosterone levels by lifting weights just twice a week for 30 minutes. And critically, strength training works better than cardio for this purpose, which might actually lower testosterone levels. Read that carefully. The conventional advice, light walking, gentle yoga, take it easy, is literally the approach that does the least to protect the hormonal environment that keeps a man's brain functioning at its best. Now, consider this. A major analysis of studies across multiple countries and thousands of senior participants found that strength training has the strongest effect on improving the general cognition in older adults. Not walking, not puzzles, not supplements. Strength training, compound movements, progressive loading, challenging the body in ways it is forced to adapt to. Lower levels of anabolic hormones do mean the response to training is somewhat blunted compared to younger men. But blunted is not absent. You still have more than enough hormonal firepower to make real gains. Here is the consequence laid bare. The man who accepts, take it easy as his life philosophy after 60, is not buying safety. He is buying a faster trip to dependency, cognitive decline, and loss of autonomy. The risk of training smartly and progressively is manageable. The risk of not training at all is catastrophic. Let me tell you about a man, not a famous athlete, just a man. He is 61. He spent his adult life working hard, raising a family, and putting himself last. He is not dramatically overweight, but he is soft in ways he never used to be. He gets winded climbing stairs. He wakes up tired. He has started declining invitations because the energy is simply not there. And, quietly, invisibly, he has started to feel old. Not just physically, but in some deeper, harder-to-define way. He starts training not because of a dramatic revelation. Maybe his doctor mentioned blood sugar. Maybe his son dragged him to the gym. Maybe he found a video like this one. Whatever the reason, he begins. In the first 2 weeks, nothing changes visibly, but something shifts. His nervous system learns to recruit muscle fibers more efficiently and coordinate movements more effectively. He begins to feel stronger and perform exercises with growing confidence. By week 6, he is hitting weights he could not have imagined at week 1. He is sleeping better, waking before the alarm. The voice in his head, the one that used to narrate every ache and excuse, has gotten quieter. By month 3, measurable muscle gains arrive. Most people begin noticing real strength and energy improvements. But here is what no fitness article ever tells you about that 3-month mark. Something happens in his identity that is more significant than any physical change. He starts to see himself differently. He starts to talk differently. The words in his conversations shift from past tense to present tense, from "I used to be strong" to "I am getting stronger." This is not metaphor. This is neuroscience. The idea that our brains become unchangeable after a certain age is a myth science has fully debunked. The brain continues to change and evolve throughout life, even into later years. Capacity for growth, learning, and transformation does not disappear with age. It waits for the right trigger. Strength training improves self-perception, confidence, and body satisfaction, contributing directly to reduced depressive and anxious symptoms. And these improvements are not cosmetic. They change how a man processes stress, how he handles confrontation, how he shows up in his relationships, and how he thinks about the future. Because when a 63-year-old man wakes up and feels physically capable, hormonally supported, and mentally sharp, he becomes a different kind of force in every room he enters. His family feels it. His friends notice it. He makes decisions with a clarity that had quietly gone missing for years. What most men never realize is that the gym is not the goal. The gym is the laboratory. What he builds there, rep by rep, week by week, is evidence. Evidence that he is not finished. Evidence that growth is still available to him. Evidence that the best version of himself is not behind him, but ahead. Here is something almost no one in fitness or psychology is saying clearly enough, and it changes the entire frame of this conversation. Most men approach fitness after 60 with one flawed mental image. They think they're trying to get back to something they once had. They think they are restoring a peak that is already past. That image is wrong, and it is costing men everything. Through consistent strength training, men in their 60s and beyond can build muscles as strong as an average 40-year-old, but that is only the physical dimension of what is happening. The psychological and neurological transformation is unique to this stage of life in ways that are genuinely remarkable. Because a man of 62 has something a man of 22 will never have. Context, depth, 4 decades of real life, loss, resilience, failure, sacrifice, joy behind every single rep. When a young man trains, he is building strength on top of potential. When a man over 60 trains, he is building strength on top of wisdom. And those two things combined create something entirely different, more intentional, more deliberate, more powerful in ways that no number on a scale can capture. Achieving physical goals triggers a feedback loop of self-efficacy that reaches into every dimension of a man's life: his relationships, his sense of purpose, his willingness to take risks, his capacity for genuine joy. The man over 60 who builds his best body is not running from aging. He is rewriting its definition. He is becoming living proof that the story does not end at 60. That the best chapter, the most clear-eyed, the most hard-earned, the most intentional, might still be directly in front of him. This is not inspiration for its own sake. This is biology. This is neuroscience. This is what happens when a man stops listening to the voices that told him his time had passed, and picks up the barbell instead. For men over 60, aging does not mean surrendering strength, confidence, or mental sharpness. Strength training can support brain health, hormonal balance, physical capability, and self-confidence. The take-it-easy mindset can quietly accelerate decline, while progressive resistance training keeps the body responsive at any age. Your 60s are not a project. They can become your second peak. You're not a man slowing down. You are a man getting serious. Use your experience, discipline, and wisdom to build something new. Start today. Train intelligently. Stay consistent. And refuse to accept limitations simply because of your age. Your best chapter may still be ahead. If this story has changed the way you view the potential of your later years, please subscribe and like the channel. We are uncovering the strength and science that society often tries to overlook. Build your second peak. The next breakthrough in your journey is coming soon.